Stephanie Pettis. I'm the Vice President of Planning and Strategy for 25th Hour Communications. I could not be more excited about this webinar today. So for those of you who have webinar fatigue, this is not that webinar. This is so exciting, and it's something that is so near and dear to my heart, and I've learned so much from today's speaker just by simply following her on Twitter. So I'm so excited to be able to have her join us today. So I wanted to go ahead and just say a really quick welcome. We have friends and colleagues and 25th Hour family from the West Coast to the East Coast today. So good morning and good afternoon. And in the middle, in the Midwest, welcome to everybody from all around the world today that we're welcoming to our webinar. So today also, I want to make sure that you guys check in and go social. So in a few moments, we'll type in the information for 25th Hour and for Alexa in the chat. So that way you guys will have ways to connect and join our communities, join the conversation both during the webinar today and following. I know that Alexa will be sharing some information with you guys on tips and tricks and things that you can do to register and learn more information about what she does for social media accessibility. So without any further ado, as you all know, social media is a promotional tool, it's a customer relations tool, but it's so much more than that now. It's become a listening tool, and that is at the very heart of what Alexa does. That's at the very heart of her mission and what she's working to teach us all about. So she is the person in the rock star who's teaching our industry how to use social media and make it accessible. Alexa is the social media manager for St. Petersburg College. So quick little shout out to our Florida College System friends and also my Florida Public Relations people who may be joining us today. She's a passionate advocate for creating accessible and inclusive content for digital communications, as well as educating others on the realities of working in social media. She's passionate, and she has also spoken and shared with Harvard University, the National Institute for Social Media, and the Great Lakes ADA Center. She's also been recognized by some, publications like Adweek and countless brands on social media. So join me in welcoming Alexa today, our rock star. I can't wait to learn. Get my pen ready.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm going to jump into my presentation now. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started.
Great.
Lauren, can you enable me for sharing the screen, please? Nope. Lauren. Sorry, everyone. Stephanie, can you see if Lauren will enable me for share screen?
Yes, I just shared a message with her.
All right. Sorry about that. Anyway, while we wait really quick, Stephanie mentioned the brand shout out. Yeah, so Ben & Jerry's has sent me free ice cream before for helping them with their social. So that's kind of a fun little thing of they were appreciative and not angry when I called them out on social. So they sent me some coupons for free ice cream. That was very appreciated. Very welcome. I will totally work for ice cream. So that was fun. Everyone was saying that Taco Bell should have sent me free chalupas, and I wouldn't have said no to that for sure.
Yeah. So. I also saw some information this week where I think Velveeta had kind of given you a little shout out at some point.
yeah, Velveeta is totally just like random yelling. It's Velveeta. That's all they do is yell. But I know the person that runs their social too. So
okay.
They're very on top of it. It's very, very funny. So yeah, Velveeta is hilarious. Velveeta, Oreos, Triscuits, all those brands are really, really funny. Sorry for the delay, everyone. Trying to get this fixed.
So, can you tell us a little bit about, while we're waiting, can you tell us a little bit about your experience and maybe what got you to the point where you became so passionate about accessibility? I know
Sure.
it's probably it's probably a good story and one of those things that kind of put you in a spot.
Yeah, so I tell people that I'm the accidental expert on digital accessibility for social media because when I worked in Chicago, I'm now based in Florida. I worked for an organization where I wore many hats, as many social media managers do.
Yeah.
Oversaw the social media for this college system, but I also helped with a lot of their digital assets for their website. So, like the sliders on the homepage. And the digital strategist on my team asked me one day if I had added alt text to them, and I had no idea what she was talking about.
Yeah.
And she had to explain it. And I was like mortified that I hadn't been doing that.
Mhm.
Um, so then I kind of fell down this personal research rabbit hole of I need to learn more about this. And I realized, oh, I could be doing so much more on social media to make the content more inclusive. And so it's just been kind of a personal journey over the last few years. And now I just never stopped talking about it. So yeah, I'm totally an accidental digital accessibility expert for social media. People want to ask me about like web accessibility stuff for like websites. I'm like, mm-mm, I
Yeah.
stay in
No.
my lane here. Like
Yeah.
it's definitely mostly social media.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's an interesting way to start. But I feel like that's how a lot of marketers discover digital accessibility. It's accidental because it's not
Yeah.
very ingrained in our industry from a digital standpoint. And with social media,
Mhm.
it evolves so frequently that it's just an unknown factor with a lot of people, whether they're new to the industry or, a 10-year veteran in the industry. So I always try to tell people you don't have to feel guilty about not knowing because a
Right.
lot of people don't know because the industry doesn't prioritize it. So it's funny because I just wrote about all that for my newsletter
Yeah.
right before hopping on.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you actually mentioned the newsletter because I'm going to drop that content information in the chat too. So, guys, Alexa has a new newsletter that she just launched, and I signed up this week myself because she's going to be sharing tips and tricks there too. So, I want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. Um, but also, I was wondering, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about. I know as a from a communication standpoint and from someone who consults colleges and talks with colleges about different things, I often receive, and I know everybody's going to cringe when I say this, but I often receive a flyer that has pounds of content, not just one line or two lines, but like tons of content. And can you talk to us a little bit about that kind of situation and how that is just not going to work?
So I get asked a lot how I handle situations like that because how do you push back against your colleagues? How do you push back against your coworkers, against leadership when they want you to do something like that? So first and foremost, those flyers aren't going to be accessible because they're flattened copy. So flattened copy basically means if I drag my cursor over it, I'm not going to be able to copy the words on the flyer because it's been turned into an object. So that's a problem
Mhm.
because a screen reader, which is assistive technology, more than likely won't be able to read that copy aloud. So that's a problem. So when I first started getting brave about pushing back against content like that, I would explain, I can't use this flyer. It's not accessible, which basically means that people who use screen readers can't access the information. That is the first argument I always go with because I want people to just like be like, oh, that's a problem. I should care about other people.
Right.
If that doesn't work, I go for the marketing argument, which is if this content is flattened, there are people who can't access it. So you're losing out on potential clients, customers, clicks, whatever we want to focus on there. Or they can't attend your event because they don't they can't click anything. So if it's not clickable, it's not actionable.
Mhm.
And if that doesn't work, then I go for the third argument, which is the scary argument. And that one usually works, which I just say, you are out of compliance. This is not accessible. This is a potential lawsuit, which with social media may or may not be true. So, but usually scaring people kind of works, sadly. But
Yeah.
I have had to use that argument before. So that one usually convinces people not to do that. What I do now when I get stuff like that, I explain I'm not going to use your flyer. I will use it as a source of information so that I can create clickable content. So I'll make you a Facebook event post, or I'll just use it to type up a tweet really quick. I'm not going to use this actual flyer. I will use an image that's more applicable to your event and use that, just because
Yeah.
that's more of an accessible way of doing things. So that's it's hard to have those conversations. I know, especially
Yeah.
from like the higher ed standpoint, we
Yes.
get event flyers all the time, all the
Yeah.
time. So I understand the difficulty of having conversation, but I also do um, stress to people that digital accessibility and prioritizing it is a across the organization thing. Like the C-suite needs to care about it, not just the people pushing the final buttons to send content out.
Absolutely.
So um, I saw in the chat,
Yeah,
are
we
you
have a
referring to posting
question.
flyers on a website? So more of like posting flyers on social media. My best The best tactic here is to always have a link. I need links for things. If it's a event or an initiative, it should be linking out to from social media to a web page where there's more information on that event or initiative or program, something where there's readable text that people who use screen readers can actually access. So that's always your best bet. Your social media should never be a substitute for your website
Yeah.
is kind of key here. And for anyone coming in late, we're just having uh, a little technical difficulties getting the share screen. So as soon as that's active, I will do the actual presentation. So Stephanie and I are just kind of chatting about digital accessibility and
Yeah.
where I started with it.
Mhm.
But if anyone has questions before we start the presentation, you can throw them in there too.
Yeah,
So
I was actually
um,
gonna say that if you guys have questions, go ahead and add those over to the chat. I know I have questions, so if you're okay, Alexa, we'll just keep going. We'll just
mhm,
keep moving in that direction.
mhm.
Um,
Yep.
so I have a lot of colleagues who tweet or who post things on social for on behalf of their clients, and they may or may not understand some of these tips and tricks or ways that they can do things like video captioning. So do you have can you tell us, like, from bottom of the line, I just started in social media management and this is what I need to know in order to make sure that myself and my brands are in compliance for accessibility?
Sure. So I kind of focus on four key areas when it comes to digital accessibility. That's copywriting, emojis and icons, images, and videos. So pretty simple. Copywriting kind of leans into hashtags, really easy ways to make hashtags accessible, as well as plain language. Also, I think I can share my screen now, so we can
Yeah.
jump in and I'll go over those things in my presentation. So if that's
Yeah.
okay with you, Stephanie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let me get started here. Thank you for your patience, everyone. All right, let's get this party started. Okay, so this is now trending accessibility on social media with me. I'm very excited to be here today to talk to everyone. So my name is Alexa Heinrich. If you came in late, I am the social media manager for St. Petersburg College in Florida on the Gulf Coast. I am an accidental expert on digital accessibility. I kind of explained earlier that I just kind of discovered this by accident, and I was very, very curious about it. So I started to learn more on my own, and now I'm kind of one of the go-to people within social media marketing for digital accessibility. I'm also a very outspoken advocate for inclusive content. I mentioned earlier that I frequently try to educate brands online about maybe some of the things they're doing that aren't accessible. Ben and Jerry's was very gracious and sent me free ice cream coupons. I did a write up on Taco Bell recently about their lack of captions on a promotional video, and they apologized and revised the video to include captions. So I stand by being that outspoken person. So, when it comes to accessibility, many digital marketers want to know what makes it important for social media and what it means to be inclusive online. Not everyone experiences or navigates digital spaces the same way. There are people with disabilities around the world who rely on assistive technology like screen readers, text to speech programs, and captioning to consume digital content. So typically, when someone uses assistive technology, it's because they have a sensory disability that is permanent, so such as blindness or hearing loss that cannot be medically or treated or reversed. Temporary, which could be a disability resulting from an injury like a bruised eye or an illness, like when you lose your hearing from an ear infection, which I have personally experienced. It's very disoriented. Or their disability is possibly situational, which means that it's affected by their environment or situations, such as having trouble seeing in low lighting or hearing in a crowded room. To give you a brief overview of assistive technology you may not be familiar with, there are screen readers, which is a software program that allows blind or visually impaired users to read the text that is displayed on a screen with a speech synthesizer or braille display. Speech synthesizers are text to speech systems used with computers that are programmed to include all of the phonemes and grammatical rules of a language, allowing words to be pronounced correctly. An example I will sometimes use is saying they read a book versus they will read a book. Speech synthesizer basically knows, okay, this is the tense of that word, this is how it should be said. Or if you have accent marks like the word resume versus resume, the accent marks tell the speech synthesizer this is how you're supposed to say the word. Then there are text to speech programs, which is technology that is used to change data into spoken words. Most smartphones actually have text to speech programs built into them, turning a phone into a screen reader as shown in this quick video. So I have an iPhone, which means that my program in my phone is called VoiceOver. So you're going to see and hear it here.
VoiceOver on. Settings. VoiceOver. Apps. Twitter. Active. Twitter. Twitter. Alexa. At Alexa testing 123. If you're going to do a mass emoji tweet, at least stick to one emoji like this. 9 Peach.
So that was the VoiceOver technology on my iPhone. So that's how, if I had a vision disability, I would use that to navigate digital spaces. I use it personally to test content as shown here in this tweet. There are 3 distinct reasons why you should be creating accessible social media content. Inclusive best practices can have a direct impact on your marketing efforts and affect how many people you reach with your digital content. Like with a brick and mortar location or your website, you also want to make sure that your social media is meeting current accessibility guidelines. And most importantly, you should care about the experience that your followers have when they engage with your brand on social media. When it comes to your marketing reach, keep in mind that roughly 466 million people worldwide have disabling hearing loss, and at least 2.2 billion people have a vision impairment or experience blindness, according to the World Health Organization. And this is not accounting for the people who do not disclose their disability. This is an estimated 65% of the global population that has a serious sensory disability. When you don't create or publish accessible social media content, that means you're potentially excluding a huge part of your audience from your messaging and missing out on important conversions, conversations, and connections, which as marketers is a big deal. Currently, the process of meeting and enforcing compliance for accessible websites, social media, and similar forms of digital communication is not very clear or easy to uphold. In the United States, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, is normally referenced, but the ADA in its current state is more applicable to physical facilities than it is digital entities. However, a recent decision by the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in 2019 ruled that the ADA can, in certain instances, also apply to the websites and apps of businesses when it allowed a blind customer to sue Domino's Pizza for not having an accessible website. This was a huge deal because up to that point, the ADA was mostly referenced in situations where a location or physical facility was inaccessible. It's best to be proactive when it comes to digital compliance, and marketers should reference the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, from the Worldwide Consortium, W3C, to make sure that they're meeting current standards for digital accessibility. This is the site that I often reference when I'm trying to look up different things that concern digital accessibility. It talks a lot about web accessibility, but a lot of it can be applied to social media as well. Above all, you should be implementing accessibility best practices because you care about your audience and removing barriers on social media. So now that you know why you should be creating accessible social media content, it's time to learn how. I'm going to be focusing on 4 key areas of digital accessibility for social media today: copywriting, emojis and icons, images, and videos. So how to be accessible with copywriting. When it comes to social media's favorite conversation device, you want to make sure to capitalize each word in your compound hashtags. This method is sometimes referred to as title case, Pascal case, or my personal favorite name for it, camel case. So you can see that I'm using all of these methods right here with those hashtags in the video. The capital letters in a compound hashtag help screen readers note the separate words, allowing them to pronounce the compound hashtags correctly and not as one amalgamated word. This is a very simple best practice you can implement with your social media. Keep in mind that some platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn will try to force your hashtags into all lowercase, so just be sure to double check that you put them in camel case before publishing your post. Camel case is also easier for literally everyone to read and can also be applied to your Twitter handle to make it more accessible as well. So this is by far the simplest method you can use to make your content more accessible, is using camel case. Plain language. So in 2010, the Plain Writing Act was signed into law in the United States. It requires that all federal agencies in the US use clear communication that the public can understand and use. Even if you're not a federal agency, writing in plain language is a best practice you should be using with your communications, including social media, because it helps your audience understand your content more quickly. Plain language is also easier for someone with a cognitive disorder to understand. According to the Plain Writing Act of 2010, there are 8 essential guidelines for writing in plain language. These are the 5 that are the most applicable to social media. Write for your audience. This should already be a basic instinct for any good digital marketer. Knowing your audience, the people who primarily engage with your social media, means knowing how to talk to them and using language they understand. Organize your information. This item kind of pertains more to web pages and communications that contain more text than the average social media post, but it's still a good tip to keep in mind, especially if you write longer posts on Facebook or LinkedIn. Make your information easy to follow and understand. Break up longer paragraphs. I've even found that at least one hard return in a tweet helps make it easier to digest and more likely that users engage with it. Choose your words carefully. I know that as a marketer and a creative thinker, I personally am very prone to flowery language, but that can actually be detrimental to your content if you're choosing words your audience may not necessarily understand. This goes back to our first plain language tip, writing for your audience. Sometimes simple is better. Be clear and concise. Thankfully, most people who work in social media understand the power of concise content and have mastered the art of packing the most important information into very short posts. When in doubt, just get to the point. And keep it conversational. Use an active voice when you're creating content if your organization's style guide allows for it. So you want to be more informal, cannot place it with can't, stuff like that. It just makes it easier to understand. So you want to write your content the way you would speak. So here is an example of some plain language. So before, the application must be completed by the student and received by the financial aid office by May 1st. That's kind of wordy, a lot of unnecessary things being said here. We must receive your application by May 1st. So it's very simple, very concise. This information would clearly be coming from the financial aid office and be going to a student. So you can simplify it by just saying, we must receive your application by May 1st. For more info on plain language, visit www.plainlanguage.gov, the U.S. government's official website for the Plain Writing Act of 2010. The site not only lists all of the basic guidelines for writing in plain language, but also offers resources and examples to help get better at plain writing. It's a really, really great website. It's kind of clinical in the examples that it uses, but it's still a really great resource to keep in mind. How to be accessible with emojis and icons. This is my personal favorite section, and it goes over emojis, Unicode characters, and ASCII art. So everyone loves emoji for the most part, but did you know that each individual emoji has its own unique description assigned to it? When a screen reader comes across an emoji, it will read the emoji's description aloud to the user. Every emoji description is unique, and some are very specific depending on the icon. So I chose 4 different examples here. Bento box is super specific. I didn't know what a bento box was until I saw this emoji, so I kind of looked that up. You have the love you gesture for some sign language, an evergreen tree, not just a tree, an evergreen tree, and an ear with a hearing aid. So these are very specific icons for what they are. Many emojis have descriptions and appearances that differ across platforms and devices. This particular emoji is known as abandoned house, old house, haunted house, and my favorite name for it, derelict house. So this emoji could be called different things depending on the platform or device that you're looking at it on. Even emoji with skin tones get custom descriptions. If a screen reader were to read this line of emojis, it would say, raised fist light skin tone, raised fist medium light skin tone, raised fist medium skin tone, raised fist medium dark skin tone, and raised fist dark skin tone. Keep in mind that because the screen reader picks up on the descriptions of emojis, the excessive use of them is not advised. It's also worth noting that screen readers will often truncate a line of emojis if only one specific icon is used. For instance, this group of emojis would be read as 24 rockets instead of a screen reader saying the word rocket 24 times. So the screen reader is trying to be as logical as possible for its user. It's best to put emojis at the end of your content, otherwise you could make your message confusing, like this playful tweet, for example. Once a screen reader translated the emojis, the content ran into several clarity issues as shown by the bolded copy that indicates where the emojis used to be. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense once those little guys were translated for this tweet. An excellent resource for digital content creators who want to use emojis in smart and strategic ways is emojipedia.org. This website lists every emoji along with their different appearances and descriptions across platforms and devices. It will also show emojis related to the one you searched and announce upcoming emoji updates. I personally have Emojipedia saved as a quick shortcut on my computer because I reference it quite frequently. And you can also use the emoji keyboard if you have a Mac computer to see different descriptions and appearances of your emojis as well. So when it comes to emoji on social media, you should use them in moderation, double check their description before using them, resist changing the color on emojis with variable skin tones unless necessary for context. This tip is for brand and organizational accounts. I would never tell someone for their personal use to, use a certain skin tone. So this is more for brand and organization accounts. And place them at the end of posts and tweets to avoid clarity issues. Another best practice for icons is one that focuses on a trend often seen on Instagram and is especially popular with beauty and lifestyle bloggers. Content creators have started using external websites to generate fancy Unicode characters for their posts to make the copy appear in different weights, fonts, and styles. So you can kind of see here where I've highlighted these lines of characters that don't look like the rest of the copy. So this is typical copy that you would see on Instagram, whereas this has been generated from an external website. Unfortunately, some assistive devices cannot decipher these characters and will typically skip over them, as shown in this first example tweet.
Alexa. At Alexa testing 123. Unfortunately, screen readers cannot read these Unicode characters, making them inaccessible. Hashtag accessibility. 4
So
minutes
you'll
ago.
notice that when my screen reader on my phone tried to read this, it completely skipped over these first 3 sentences because they used Unicode characters and skipped to the part that used native text. Even worse are the Unicode characters that screen readers translate into indistinguishable noises, like in this second example tweet. So this one is quite jarring.
Alexa. At Alexa testing 123 circled Latin capital letter S.
While I only showcased a few seconds of that tweet, it actually took almost 2.5 minutes for my phone screen reader to read the entire post aloud. Content creators should only use the native fonts built to the platforms. Another popular trend on social media that involves the use of characters is called ASCII art, and often looks something like this. It uses letters, numbers, and punctuation to create illustrated memes and has been around for decades now, but the trendy use of ASCII art comes and goes in waves. ASCII art is currently seeing a resurgence in popularity on social media as major brands try to appear relatable and hip with their followers. However, ASCII art isn't accessible for screen readers. A screen reader is programmed to read characters and punctuation marks as they were originally intended. They cannot properly discern when characters are used to recreate ASCII art, and when read aloud, ASCII art normally sounds something like this.
Bullet underscore bullet. X. Bullet underscore bullet. Greater than reversed not sign black square. Black square. Reversed not sign black square underscore black square. Y.
So the art is cute, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when a screen reader gets a hold of it. Also, it should be noted that ASCII art formatting doesn't always look the same across different devices or browsers, so it could move around depending on what someone's using to browse their social media. So now we're going to move on to how to be accessible with images. This is hands down the section that I get the most questions about. Images play a key part on social media, but how does someone with a vision disability experience a picture? Screen readers need alt text, a short physical summary of the image, in order to accurately describe it aloud to users. Alt text can be auto-generated by some platforms, but Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram all allow you to manually write alt text, which is preferred. On Facebook, alt text can be added by clicking edit in the upper left corner of an image before posting it and typing it in the appropriate field. You'll notice in this demonstration that Facebook attempted to write its own alt text, but it's vague and doesn't paint a very clear description of the uploaded image. So it just did sky, cloud, tree, twilight, plant. Like that doesn't really tell me anything about this picture except for some of the things in it, but not the entire compilation of the image. Twitter recently updated its settings so that the ability to add alt text to an image is automatically available to everyone and not a feature users need to activate, as it was previously. On the web version mobile app of Twitter, along with TweetDeck, the alt text option appears with images as add description or plus alt. You can also add alt text to GIFs on Twitter if you use their built-in GIF library, which is great. And they recently launched their stories feature, and you can add alt text to Twitter's stories, which is a first for that since you can't do that on any of the other platforms. LinkedIn has one of the easiest alt text features to find and use. As soon as you upload an image to your LinkedIn post, the words add alt text appear as a button in the upper right-hand corner of your image in the next window. You want to keep in mind that LinkedIn does have a 120 character limit for its alt text, so be intentional about the images you choose to post. For Instagram, when you get to the final screen before posting your image, you want to tap Advanced Settings, scroll to Accessibility, click Write Alt Text, and then add your image description. If you have multiple images, there will be a slot for each image on that final screen. For whatever reason, Instagram doesn't make their alt text field very easy to find, but it is there. You just have to click a couple times. Alt text publishing capabilities vary across popular third-party management sites, and unfortunately, none can currently post to Instagram with alt text due to the API restrictions of that platform. However, if you're looking to schedule an Instagram post with alt text, you can use Facebook Creator Studio if your Instagram account is a business or creator account and is linked to a published Facebook page. So that's the way that I personally get around that problem with my college's Instagram is I use Facebook Creator Studio. When it comes to writing alt text for your images, these are a few things to keep in mind. Avoid flowery language. You should focus on describing the physical aspects of the picture and speak in plain language, which we talked about earlier. Resist the urge to be ornate or overly effusive with your descriptions. You want to keep your alt text relatively short. There are some screen readers that will apparently break up alt text after 125 characters, so just keep that in mind. Exclude picture of or image of. The screen reader is already going to say picture of or image of when it gets to an image, so you don't need to include that in your alt text. But if your image is a different medium, so let's say it's an illustration or a screenshot of something, I do include that in my alt text just to give more context around what a user is actually looking at. Avoid posting images with flattened text. So I kind of talked about this earlier when Stephanie and I were just chatting. Flattened text is basically text that has been turned into an object. So if you get a JPEG file of an event flyer, all of that text has been flattened and can no longer be read by a screen reader more than likely. There are certain instances where the AI for a platform is smart enough to pick up on it, but that doesn't mean that it's always going to pick up on it or pick up on all of the flat copy. So if you have flattened copy on an image you're going to post, you need to include that copy in your alt text. It's okay to use proper nouns and names. So if it's a really well-known proper noun, name for a place, thing, initiative, whatever, you can put that in your alt text. An example I like to use is when Senator Elizabeth Warren was running for president of the United States. Her social media team always used her title and name in the alt text of images that she was featured in. It just made sense. It was about her campaign and her running for president. So including her name and title in the alt text was just a good move. Don't feel like you need to describe everything. So you want to focus on the most important details of your image. If something is significant, go ahead and describe it. If it's not, skip it and save your characters for the important stuff. You can include extra identifiers for people. So if the race, gender, ethnicity, or another identifier for the person is relevant to the overall context of the image, feel free to add it. It also helps in this instance to think of your content as a whole. Is that identifier contextually important? An example I use is the protests we saw around the country last summer with Black Lives Matter. If there are images from those protests happening, the race of the individuals in the pictures would be relevant because we are talking about a racial justice movement. And you want to avoid acronyms if possible. So it's better to type out the full name or title of a person, place, organization, or initiative because screen readers don't always read acronyms correctly. Lesser known acronyms also don't add a lot of context to your alt text. If you do use an acronym in your alt text, you want to type out the full name of the person, place, initiative, whatever it is, before using the acronym. And in order for the acronym to be said properly by the screen reader, you would put dashes or spaces in between each letter in the alt text. So I will say there are exceptions to this rule depending on what the acronym is. So I tested the acronym for NASA and my screen reader says it as NASA. So it's that popular that it's said properly. And the last one is add your keywords for improved SEO. This piece of advice is more for images on websites. SEO isn't confirmed as affecting search results through Google, Bing, whatever you use when it comes to social media. However, if you do have, you add alt text to your images on Instagram and use keywords, it does affect the search results within that app. However, I always stress that you should be prioritizing the description of your image first and foremost, and not just trying to pack SEO keywords into your alt text. Alt text is an accessibility feature and not an SEO growth hack. Okay, moving on. How to be accessible with videos. This is the final section, so we are almost there. Audio descriptions. An audio description is a form of narration used to provide info surrounding key visual elements in videos for blind and visually impaired consumers. They're an accessible option on popular streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus. So you'll see here at the bottom, I have a screenshot, the audio subtitles drop down from my Netflix subscription, and off to the left is audio, English audio description. So that's where you would find it on Netflix. An audio description adds an additional audio track to a video that can be toggled on and off or by supported platforms. Unfortunately, just audio descriptions are not supported by YouTube or Vimeo. An option for making accessible videos with audio descriptions for those platforms is to create two versions of your video, one with an audio description and one without. Or you can also write a very descriptive written description in the caption of your video on YouTube or Vimeo. That's also an option because you can't do audio descriptions easily there. And of course, you want to make sure that you caption your videos. So I'm going to show you this short video, part of a short video on audio descriptions. So this is a video from Frozen, the Disney movie, and it doesn't have a lot of dialogue, so it does have an audio description on it. You'll hear a woman speaking.
From the creators of Tangled and Wreck-It Ralph, Disney. A carrot-nosed, coal-eyed snowman shuffles up to a purple flower peeping out of deep snow.
Ooh, hello.
He takes a deep sniff. His nose lands on a frozen pond. A reindeer looks up and pants like a dog. Seeing the reindeer slip on the ice, the snowman smiles and moves towards him, though actually he's running on the spot. The reindeer falls on his chin. The snowman uses his arm as a crutch. The reindeer paddles his front legs. Head over heels, the snowman crawls along the ice. The reindeer does the breaststroke. The snowman rolls his body, but flips onto his back. The reindeer's tongue sticks to the ice. The snowman hurls his head. Twig arm and reindeer lips tug at the carrot. The carrot flies off and lands in soft snow.
So that's just a quick example of audio descriptions. You could hear that woman describing what was happening in the video. That's a very fun video. It's a really good example of audio descriptions, and it makes me laugh. So moving on, no matter where a video is posted, whether it's on a website or social media, it should contain captioning, sometimes called subtitles, so that deaf or hard of hearing users can understand and enjoy the content. It should also be understood that 85% of the videos on social media and the internet are listened to with sound off, or viewed with sound off, I should say. So that's just something to keep in mind from a marketing standpoint as well. Captioning can be closed or open. Closed captioning can be toggled on or off based on the preferences of the viewer, whereas open captioning is permanently burned into the video and always visible. Both YouTube and Vimeo allow you to upload your own SRT files, a common file type for subtitles and captions, or you can edit captioning directly on the platforms. So on YouTube, captions can be added to an uploaded video by navigating to the subtitles tab in YouTube Studio. When I add captions manually, I always do the pause while typing because I'm not a very quick typer, and I do auto syncing. So a really good trick for this, so right now you're watching me kind of write my captions myself, which can be a little time consuming. A really good trick to do with YouTube is uploading a video as unlisted so that people can't find it, letting it sit there for like maybe an hour, depending how long your video is, and YouTube will actually auto generate captions for your video for you. And then you can then go in and edit those captions so that they are accurate before publishing them and then making your video public. So that's a really good way to do your closed captioning without doing a whole lot of work around it. Another great part about creating your captions on YouTube is that you can also download the SRT file for your video and use it if you upload your video directly to Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So that's a really great option if you just want to upload directly to any of those platforms, is just taking the SRT file from YouTube. Currently, the only in-app captioning option for Instagram are auto-generated closed captions on IGTV. However, this feature must first be turned on in the Instagram app if you wish to see or use the captions, and a video must be uploaded through the IGTV app, not the native Instagram app or Facebook Creator Studio. After uploading your video in IGTV, make sure to also toggle the captions on in the advanced settings. You cannot edit the captions that are generated, and they are not viewable on a desktop computer. Only the IGTV and Instagram apps. The language of your captions is designated by the primary language you have set in the Instagram app. It should be noted that both the viewer and the creator must have the captions option turned on for them to be visible. Viewers will not see captions if a creator has opted not to use this feature. So this is very confusing for a lot of digital content creators of how they get these closed captions to work. It took me a couple tries to get it to work properly and understanding the limitations of it. This is why I am actually a big fan of just doing open captions on any of my Instagram videos. So the captions that I burn onto them before posting a video, just because I know they will actually work and will be visible, and I don't have to worry about the settings that IGTV and Instagram have set. So I'm going to show you a very quick video for open captions and captioning apps. Ooh, I don't know why I did that. That was weird. And because I know a lot of social media managers are always out and about and not exactly next to their computer to caption videos, great mobile options for captioning include Clip-O-Matic, AutoCap, Capwing, and my personal favorite, Mixed Captions. Mixed Captions is great because you can use the normal camera app on your phone to record the video and then upload it to Mixed Captions. Once that app has captioned your video, you can edit the captions for accuracy. You can also edit them for the font, background color, and position within your video. When you export the final video, you can choose the size and orientation, and you can even add a custom watermark. So I captioned that video with Mixed Captions, which is my preferred app, but there are others out there: Clip-O-Matic, AutoCap, Capwing, Clips. Instagram has its own app called Threads for captioning. I don't think you can edit those captions though. But so these are some options if you're trying to do some quick open captions with a video on your phone that I highly recommend. So tips for writing captions. You want to break up your captions at natural language breaks. You want to allow time to read your captions, since that's kind of the point of having them. Include captions for any non-speaking sounds. So if a camera shutter goes off, if a door slams, stuff like that. And you want to identify when a new speaker starts talking. So you'll see this a lot with newscasting. If you turn on the captions, you'll see when a new person starts speaking. And then live streaming. So when you host online events or do live streaming, you want to consider using video services that have live captioning, like Zoom. You want to hire an on-camera interpreter, or provide a full video transcript soon after your event ends. So these are kind of the options for live streaming. I personally don't like doing live streaming just because live captioning is not always the best. That technology is not very good yet. And just a bonus section, so testing content. I do recommend to digital marketers to set up an unpublished Facebook page as well as a private Twitter account. These are great ways to privately test content for social media for accessibility before publishing it for the rest of the world. I also suggest that you get familiar with the screen reader built into your phone. So as I showed earlier, iPhone has VoiceOver, Android devices have TalkBack. So testing content is key to keeping everything accessible and inclusive. So that is basically the presentation, but I always welcome questions. We're going to have a Q&A really quick here, but I also have additional resources on my website at therealalexa.com, including a checklist that you can use as a quick once over for your content before posting it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, but my URL will be in the chat. So let me stop.
Thank you so much. So for those of you who are like me and basically ran out of ink trying to take notes, your problems are solved. We did record today's session and we will be posting that and we will be sharing that with you guys who have joined us today. So, go ahead, chime in if you have questions here in the chat, or of course, I posted the information there. Go social with us and join our communities. So you can feel free to tag 25th Hour or Alexa in your tweets or posts. I know Alexa is really great about responding to people on social because a lot of people reach out to her and ask questions throughout the day even, and I've noticed that she's really great about responding. So do we have any questions from anyone? I see that Andrea posted. She's from California, so she's a member of our 25th Hour family. We do have a question, let's see, from Karen. Do any social media scheduling platforms such as Sprout offer alt text for posts?
Yes, so I am going to provide this presentation to Stephanie, so you guys will have it as a resource. There is a table within the presentation where I kind of went over third-party management sites and apps. Sprout Social does offer alt text for Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. It is my personal favorite, and I am a Sprout Social client. So I do like that they do that. Hootsuite and Agora Pulse are the other two that also hit Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. No third-party management sites can currently do Instagram, unfortunately, but I do have a whole table to show you the capabilities of platforms like Buffer, Later, Hootsuite, all of them. So I tried to find as many as possible and reach out to them. I saw in the Q&A section, Julia asked, can we sign up for your newsletter through your website? Yes, I do have a link off to the side in my on my website where it'll direct you to my newsletter. So there was another question in the Q&A. I see a lot of people recently posting. What?
I was going to go ahead. I had one in the chat. So
sorry, what'd you say, Stephanie?
You do your question first and then I'll do.
Sure, sorry. I see a lot of people recently posting image descriptions straight in the caption for Instagram posts. Is this necessary if you're directly adding alt text anyway? Okay, so this is tricky. Instagram is buggy with its alt text. I have personally started doing my image descriptions directly in the captions for my posts. So after I do my normal caption, I do 2 hard spaces or breaks, and then I write image description, and then I write the actual image description. For whatever reason, people are having issues with their screen readers not picking up alt text, even on posts that are confirmed to have alt text. So I have switched to doing that. Hopefully Instagram is working on fixing that. They've been alerted to this issue with certain mobile devices not using it. So either, if you're going to put it in the image description, if you're going to put it in your caption, don't put it in your alt text. If you're going to put it in your alt text, don't put it in the image description. I'm personally going to recommend just writing it in your caption for your own sanity at this point, because Instagram is making me nervous with this glitch. So I still train people on how to find that section, but personally, I'm going to recommend that you write it in the caption of your Instagram posts. It's a weird glitch and it's making me so paranoid. So excellent question, Catherine.
And we have a question also from Cindy Brown in the chat. What do you suggest for alt text options on social media stories?
Oh, this is so painful. So currently, Twitter is the only platform with a story feature that allows for the addition of alt text. You cannot do that on Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, or Instagram. That they just don't have that capability. When I do stories, when I try to do stories for my college, I do have a visual part to it, but I also narrate every single one of our stories. So there's a visual aspect and an audio aspect, which is how every visual on social media should be. There should be an audio capability with your visuals. With a normal image on the feed, that is your alt text. That adds the audio function because if someone uses a screen reader, that's how they access that audio. So currently there is no way to do alt text with other story features besides Twitter, and it's a huge problem. They are very aware of it. We yell about it a lot. So don't put really important information in your stories features, essentially, unless you are describing it audibly.
Yeah,
Um,
we have another question. in the Q&A.
Catherine, yeah. So generally to get line breaks to space out paragraphs, I use an emoji, but learning what you said about emojis and screen readers, do you have a suggestion for what to do to get a paragraph break? So you shouldn't have to do anything special for paragraph breaks in Instagram anymore. They fixed that a few months ago where you can just do a hard return and it'll do a space. So supposedly that works for everyone now. I would test it out with a test on your personal Instagram if you have one, but you shouldn't have to do special characters to make spaces, at least one hard space on Instagram anymore. That was a day of celebration when I realized that. That was an amazing update that was very much needed. So you shouldn't have to do emojis or special characters to do a line break. So a lot of people are still realizing that. So it's a slow realization because Instagram didn't really announce it. It was just accidentally discovered.
Yeah. Wow. Do we have any other questions in the Q&A or in the chat?
I hope everyone learned something.
For social media videos that do not include sound, how should you describe the video, specifically on IG story? On screen, should you have text that says something like this video depicts?
I mean, you can with that's such a difficult one. Yeah, I'm trying. Well, I'm trying to think how you do that because it's difficult since those story functions don't actually include alt text. So it's you would need to do an audio description essentially for them in order for them to be accessible since there's not alt text. So it wouldn't be a visual. It wouldn't be a visual thing. It would be you would speak it. Someone would need to audibly say, this video depicts such and such. I do a weekly rundown of events for the college, and it's just slides with the name of the event, where it is, everything's online at this point, and the time and the date. So I have an initial slide that goes out. These are the events for these dates. And then I do say sound on for narration. And then every single slide that has text on it, you hear me reading off those events. So I record the story slides essentially, because if someone is visually impaired, there is no way for them to access that information unless it's said aloud. So kind of a weird roundabout way of explaining it, sorry. But that's yeah, the stories is such a headache for me. It's a constant headache, and I need to talk about it more with these presentations, but it's difficult.
Yeah. I think we have one more question. Sometimes I use emojis to create bullet points. This is a great question too. All of these are great questions. But now thinking about it, that may not be the best for accessibility. What do you suggest? Dashes, maybe.
Yes, dashes should work. I got this question a couple weeks ago and I did test it. So if you just do 2 hard returns and then start doing your list with dashes, the screen reader will not say dash and then whatever your point is. It just reads off your point, pauses for the next break, and then reads the next point. So if you want to do a bolded list on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, that is how to do it. I'm really hoping that Facebook will soon add formatting for its posts because we can format posts in groups. So why can't we do it on Facebook pages? I don't understand that logic, but yes, that is how you would do it. Instead of using emojis, you're going to use just a dash should do it. If you use Mac and you do the I think it's Alt 8 and it makes the bullet point, it
Yeah.
will say bullet and then your point. So, I mean, it still says it, but at least it's not smiling face with sunglasses.
Yeah.
Bullet is preferable to that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, again, if you guys have any other questions outside of this presentation, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find all my contact information on my website. I answer questions all day, every day while I'm working. I answer emails about this stuff all the time. And I do have the newsletter where a lot of this information gets put. So I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation.
I know I did. Like I said, I ran out of ink when I was trying to take notes. So, we have so many people that are chiming in over on the chat. So if you have a chance to take a look at that, Alexa, before you completely sign out, much appreciation to you and to all of our panelists, to the 25th Hour team who helped with support to promote this webinar and put the webinar together. Thanks to our team, thanks to all of our family that have joined us today across the country. Again, the session is recorded and we will be posting on our website, and we'll share Alexa's slides when we get those from her as well. So again, Nicole mentioned this. Thank you for presenting this complicated topic clearly. Yes, exactly. I echo that. I do have one last question. It's a little bit of a vulnerable question, if you don't mind, but I'm just curious if you've had anyone who has benefited from some of the things that you've done on social, if there's someone with a disability or someone who has benefited from that maybe has reached out to you and thanked you for
I
doing.
have.
That's awesome.
I have.
That's
I
awesome.
had a woman reach out to me who she lost her sight a few years ago due to an accident, and she reached out just to thank me. She works for a major baseball team, actually. So I don't really know how she found me, or she just wanted to reach out, but she sent me the nicest thank you message, and I cried reading it. I want to cry thinking about it now. And we do still talk, and she gives me feedback because I always stress to people, I don't have a hearing or vision disability. I mean, I wear contacts, but I don't need a screen reader to navigate digital spaces. So I do constantly second guess myself and trying to put this information out and hoping that it's accurate. So when she reached out to me, it meant a lot to me to kind of have it confirmed by someone who is affected by these best practices that yes, it makes a difference. I have a number of followers now I know that have hearing disabilities and vision disabilities, and I love talking with them because they're people just like everyone else. So we don't need to treat them as fragile human beings, but we need to give them, the respect and the autonomy to navigate digital spaces just like we would. So it means a lot to me that they do think the information I put out makes a difference.
Yeah, fantastic. We also have someone that commented, as a parent of someone with hearing impairment, it is huge when consideration is given for those who are affected. It is huge for my son, but parents appreciate it too. Absolutely. That's wonderful. I'm glad that you felt comfortable sharing that with me. I did not prepare her for that question. So I kind of sprung that one on you, but I totally would support that. And I just thank you for being in the trenches and doing the work. I know that we have all learned, and I hope that we can help continue to provide a platform for you so that you can share this information so that we can all do better. So
Of course. Thank you again for having me. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and learned something. Digital accessibility really just tells people that you care about their experience online and you care about them. It gives them autonomy, which is incredibly important. If you've ever experienced moments where you don't have autonomy, you know what it feels like. So that's what I people. So I'm very grateful for everyone who tuned in today because you're telling me that this is important to you.
yeah, awesome. Thanks, everyone. I hope you all have a great Friday Eve this afternoon. And Alexa, thank you so much. Take some time this afternoon to go out to the beach for me and dip your toes in the sand. So, all right. Thank you all very much. And if you have any questions, please feel free to follow up with us. Again, our social information is in the chat. So copy that down really quickly and engage with us. Join our communities with 25th Hour Communications and then also with Alexa on all the things social. So thanks.
Bye, everyone.